There'd be a lot of cap fan dangling to make this work, but Erik Karlsson.
I've been thinking about Erik Karlsson a lot, and I'm glad you brought it up.
What's up, and welcome to the Crude Oil Podcast, a weekly uncensored Edmonton Oilers podcast with your hosts, Sean and Greg. What's up, and welcome back to the Crude Oil Podcast. It is the Steve Staios episode, number 24. That's a good one to start with, eh?
Yeah, I love Steve Staios. He's one of my favorite defensemen during those early Oilers years.
Probably the only trade I remember initially being such a shock when they traded him to Calgary, and I was like, what the fuck are we doing here?
To be fair, whenever there's a trade between Calgary, you're kind of shook.
True.
It doesn't really make sense at the time.
We were going to say Dave Manson, but I feel like he's going to hear it enough this podcast.
Yeah, probably.
But before we get into things, Evander Kane, if you're still looking at joining a podcast and still interested, you fired out the bat signal at 3 o'clock today, just asking whether or not he should start or join a podcast. So he's got some time on his hands. There's a third chair well open for you.
Exactly. That would be fantastic, even if it was just for an episode, if we could convince a guy like Evander Kane to come join us.
Yeah. Just shoot the shit for a little bit. It's a long shot in the dark, but shooter's got to shoot, right?
Exactly.
Okay. A plethora of hockey to get into. We were talking just before we hit record on the podcast. Rather than going through every single game, there's just so many themes that are coming up that I don't think we spend enough time on the podcast actually going through and kind of explaining our theories and kind of taking an overall look. There's enough post-game shows to go into. So we'll try and recap each game, spend about 5 minutes on each game from the past week. Just another quick housekeeping note that we were talking about. We're trying to get Tuesdays in, but I mean, we both work full time, and sometimes it just doesn't make sense. Like yesterday, we were going to record during the Jersey game, but there's only 2 games the week before. It just didn't make sense.
Life just happens too.
Yeah.
So you never know. And at the end of the day, I think it's more important to get an episode out each week versus on a specific time and day.
Yeah, I think that's a very fair approach. So whether it be Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, it'll be early in the week, but it'll be one a week moving forward. Let's dive in. We go all the way back to Wednesday. I felt like we had so much time off without any games.
Honestly, I always like the small lulls in the season where you just kind of get to sit there and take it all in. And I really would have hoped the team had the chance to do the same thing and come on this road trip essentially and come out swinging.
Yeah. Wishful thinking, I guess.
Yeah, well, the road trip did start after the LA game, to be fair.
I see what you're saying, yeah.
But with that being said, we'll just jump into the first game. Edmonton loses to LA by the score of 3-1.
Yeah, another hat trick.
Really 2-1, empty netter. What can you do?
Yeah.
We know more than our own fair share of empty net hat tricks this season. So,
So I saw a stat during this game. This is the one thing I wanted to bring up is that at that point in time, there's only 12 NHL games that had hat tricks in them so far this year. Yeah. The Oilers have been involved in 7 of them, and 4 of them have been against. So,
well, let's see. 2 McDavid ones, Evander Kane, 2 Svechnikov ones. Yeah. This one. Is that 7? I totally stopped counting for some reason.
I think you're at 6, but yeah, there's another one in there. Yeah, Jamie Benn.
Jamie Benn, yeah.
There we go. Yeah. So, anyways, I was just throwing that out there because I think
I'm not surprised by that stat. Edmonton plays a highly offensive style game. Our defense is absolute dog water. So, I'm not surprised.
Yeah. So, I mean, that aside, the big thing that happened in this game was the Edler hit.
Yeah, pretty much. I think that play in itself just completely rattled the whole team. You could see it in that Zach Hyman interview in between periods where he literally had to bite his own tongue and stop himself from saying something.
See, and I thought that would be a rallying point for the team.
I think to a degree it could be, but I think the team got too in their own head at that point. You could tell McDavid was frustrated. You could tell Hyman was frustrated with that play. Even Draisaitl's out there throwing the body, and I think that, like, as much as I'd like to see that from those guys, because hopefully that reverberates throughout the lineup and guys feel more motivated to go out there and play physically, I think it gets away from McDavid and Draisaitl's styles of games when they're more focused on making hits and stuff than actually making plays with the puck.
Yeah, your brain leads with the body first rather than that. So, I obviously a dirty hit. Like, he clearly stuck his leg out. And then Doughty, of course, trying just to play the anti-hero, like stick up for his team. Like, he's got to, but that was deliberate as I've ever seen.
Yeah, Doughty is the fucking worst. I'm very happy that he wasn't there for the playoff series last year, because to me he's like Kachuk level of I fucking hate this guy, because he never shuts up. He's always in the scrums fucking around with everybody. And I'm like, buddy, you're like a $10 million defenseman. You don't need to play like this.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense to me.
He's definitely trying to find his role now that, the play's starting to, diminish a little bit towards the back end of his career. But I don't know. Any other themes that really stood out for this game? I just felt like LA was the better team through and through. They threw Edmonton off their game.
Yeah, I think overall LA was better. Their goalie played fantastic, and unfortunately Edmonton had some pretty bad puck luck. Like, if you look at that first goal that goes off of the Kings player and just flutters up over him and in.
There's a few of those this week.
You can't really do much about that. Or what was it? Oh, I think I just mixed up the games.
Are you thinking the Vegas?
Yeah, that's the Vegas goal. Sorry, this was the one where he wired it past the point, or from the point. Moore wired it from the point. Vogel was in the way, didn't get a piece of it, so Skinner literally could not see shit. And then that second goal was the classic cross ice pass, because our PK doesn't know how to do anything about that, and just a backdoor tap, and essentially, and then obviously the empty netter. But I don't know. You can't play like that. The team needs to score goals. Like, that was the one game where our goalie only gave up 2 goals and we still couldn't win.
Yeah.
Usually that should be enough for our team to be able to only have 2 goals against. We should be able to score 3 a game.
I thought, Stuart Skinner played a strong game. It just feels like we're getting beat in these games. Like, it's going to come down to our defense. And I know it's a theme that we'll talk about a little bit later, but if we can't score goals, we're not going to win.
Yeah.
That's the way it just is right now.
See, the problem is, though, we are scoring goals. Like, we're, 3rd in the league in goals for per game this season. But we're also bottom 3 in the league for goals against. We actually have more goals against after these 3 games than we do goals for now.
But we have some of the worst 5-on-5 stats, like, in the league.
Oh, of course.
So,
but to be fair, like, our power play is good, but our PK shit. So those cancel each other out.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, we're just kind of shooting ourselves in the foot every single fucking game.
I know. I'm going to get it out of the way early. This team feels very meh to me right now.
I would say the D-core feels very meh.
Yeah.
And the depth scoring feels very meh.
No, I'm saying that knowing, I guess there's Evander Kane out. You're missing Yamamoto, which, have we got a fucking update what's going on there?
No, I'm pretty sure he's just been like, is he even on IR or is he just day-to-day?
I haven't seen anything. I thought it was day-to-day, but I didn't see the injury. I don't know what's going on. I don't know if it's lingering from the preseason, but it's just...
I would maybe think that it was a lingering thing that maybe got more severe.
Yeah.
And that's just based off of the fact that he kind of has had a rough start. But to be fair, that's kind of what you get with Yamamoto, right? He's very hot and cold. So maybe he was just cold before he got hurt.
It's games like this where you kind of like... this one and the Jersey game we'll get into. Granted, the New Jersey Devils are on a fucking white-hot rocket to the moon right now. But like, this Kings game should have been something a Stanley Cup contender should, fare better in the way that they show up, and they just didn't show up. And I just feel like this has been a theme, like, week after week after week that we go into this. It's very attuned to the 2018 Edmonton Oilers team for me.
Yeah, the post cup run team that lost to Anaheim.
Yeah.
Where they're kind of riding high in the confidence department, but that seems to make it so they don't try while they're out there.
Right.
Unless your name's Zach Hyman, essentially.
I know you're pulling up the Yamamoto stuff, but
I just went and checked, and he's not even on IR. He can be put on IR retroactively if they want, but they're just holding him as day-to-day, technically.
Okay. Well, I guess that's that news. But yeah, it's just one of those things where, and granted, you remember that little lull we had last year. Thank God we didn't have a podcast at that time, because like after the COVID streak and everything that hit the team, and we didn't end up, how many losses in a row? Was it like 20 out of 25 games that we lost at one point? Like,
yeah, that would have been an interesting time to have a podcast, because every single podcast would have been like this kind of vibe where it's just like, what the fuck is going on?
Right.
And hashtag fire tippet for every single post you make.
Yeah. Or like looking at Ken Holland, like I'm not ready to do that, because I still think it's relatively early compared to like what we saw last year. But at the same time, like, are we going to get better? You'd hope that this is kind of like them figuring their shit out early on in the year. But I don't know. It's a 9-8 team, and it looks like a 9-8 team.
I thought we were 10-9.
10-9? Shit, I'm looking at an old record. That's why.
Oh, you were looking at the record
Yeah.
post the LA game.
Still, nothing's changed. But
yeah, we're essentially 500. We're fifth in the Pacific, barely holding on to a wild card spot at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is not where the team wants to be at this point. Like, we should be top 2 in the division, like second behind Vegas. There's no reason LA and Seattle, of all teams, should be in front of us.
Right.
So, at the end of the day, though, this LA game, the team just didn't show up the way that they needed to. And yeah, we need to score. I think Skinner gave us every chance in the world to win this game, and the offense just didn't show up. And if you ask the players, they'd probably feel the same way.
Yep. Just before we move off this game, jerseys, what'd you think of them?
I like the jerseys. I cannot get over the orange oil drop.
It's glaring, hey?
Yeah, like whenever it's the forward-facing jersey towards you, that's the only thing you notice. It's the first thing that catches your eye, and it looks awkward and out of place.
I think it has to, like, even if that little, like, accent was, like, blue or something, it's just the white and gray on orange is just not a good mix.
Yeah, it clashes pretty hard.
But anyways, I still like them, but yeah, I'm with you. It's like kind of that one ugly thing you can't stop staring at.
Yeah, otherwise I love the jerseys. Like,
Yeah.
I think they don't look bad at all, but they could be better.
Moving to finally a Saturday night primetime hockey night in Canada game. It was nice to have one of those for a change. We'll get a 1 week break before we head into New York, I guess 11 a.m. in the morning, but it's just felt like a month at least since we've had a late night game.
Call me crazy. I can't wait for an 11 a.m. game.
Really?
But, yeah, we'll get into that later.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so Vegas in town. I thought this was kind of the true test for Edmonton. Like, this has got to be the game that you guys show up in. Vegas is riding an unreal start to their season. I did not see them being first in the division.
Well, like, let's look at their team. Like, Logan Thompson was supposed to be the weak point on that team, and instead he's been one of their biggest strengths. He's been fantastic, lights out all season. And Jack Eichel he did struggle to get going last season after he returned from his injury, but this year, after a full offseason of training and a full training camp, he's come out swinging and played fantastic. Him and Mark Stone and Chandler Stevenson, that is a terrifying line combo.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
That's not to mention the defensive pedigree of that line either.
Yeah, I just, as soon as I saw the lineup, I thought we were just lucky not to get Logan Thompson off the start. So at least feeling good heading into that game. But just look, it was an entertaining game. A lot of back and forth stuff going on. Some of the things that stood out. Well, Fogle, just to start off, like, nice to see him getting rewarded that top 6 minute. Like, I think he's been busting his ass these past couple of weeks.
Fogle is one of the players, I will say, this season I have been pleasantly surprised with. Like, the way he's producing right now is what I would like to have seen out of Yamamoto before he got injured. I would have liked to see out of Puljujarvi. Like, these guys are playing in the top 6. They need to make the most of it. And so far, it seems as though Fogle has been making the most of it.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, the weird one was, or the weird goal that you're talking about, that was just, like, of course that went in. The Kolzar, I didn't see, I think it got tipped, like, right before it hit, like, went in on Skinner.
Yeah, essentially there was two Oilers players battling for or not two Oilers players, an Oilers player and a Vegas player battling for the puck or battling for position in front of the net. And it goes off of the Vegas player, I believe, and just flutters like 3 feet in the air over Skinner and just plops right into the back of the net. Nobody sees it, and that's like the shittiest luck you can get.
Yeah, it felt very very slow-mo when it was going up. You could just see it, and you're like, a fucking course. Like,
Yeah.
of course. But the only other thing that I had like noted out of this game that kind of really stood out is Leon Draisaitl and kind of the third goal. So Edmonton has a 3-2 lead. Hyman starts that period off with the goal. Kind of gives the team kind of a little bit of a bump because it felt like there's a lull heading into the end of the second, even though it was a tie game. And I just feel this team, as soon as they get tied or they're a goal ahead, the play kind of drops off. Mm-hmm. But in his own end, Leon Draisaitl chips it up the boards, doesn't get out of the zone, doesn't rush back for defensive coverage, and Marchstone ties it up. Like, just the most lackadaisical effort
Here's the thing with that effort. There was just the no icing call.
Yeah.
That absolutely infuriated every Oilers fan who was watching that game. And I'm not going to say, like, just because you're tired doesn't mean you can not try. So that's not really an excuse. But in this game as a whole, I'm not going to go and say that the refs fucked Edmonton over, per se, because Edmonton got their fair share of power play chances in that game.
Yeah, it was
like,
even, yeah.
Like, you look at that no icing call, you look at the Stone penalty shot, which in my opinion shouldn't have been a penalty shot. He was not clearing away. Me and my roommate were watching it. We're like, that is not a penalty shot. He used to do reffing, and he's just like, I would never have called that a penalty shot.
See, it's funny. I had the exact same thing. My brother, who's obviously not an Oilers fan, he's like, oh, you didn't get a shot. That's clearly a penalty shot. I was like, fuck, of course, yeah. But
yeah, like, I was under the impression there had to be more of a degree of separation for there to be a penalty shot, but what do I know, I guess? Yeah. Because if you went on based off not getting a shot off, then McDavid would have 20 penalty shots a year. Yeah. So that kind of criteria is a bunch of fucking bullshit. But either way, yeah, that was a weak effort by Draisaitl, especially getting the puck out. I fucking hate to see that because that happens to Edmonton all the time where they make a lazy play. Doesn't matter who it is. Mm-hmm. Somebody on the team likes to make a lazy play, not get it out of the zone, and then they either get hemmed for 5 minutes or they just get scored on immediately.
Yeah. It feels like we come in here every week and it's the same shit over and over and over. But, I mean, they probably know it too. Like, it's just, what are we doing about it? It was fun, speaking of watching that game with my brother, like, as soon as it went to overtime, he's like, well, McDavid's going to score on just a ridiculous goal. And, I mean,
I'd take that bet.
Just unreal. The way that he, like, makes so much separation between him and the defender, cuts in tight, and then still has so much time to put so many moves. Like, that, he's probably, 5 feet from the goal line, and he roofed that, like, over his glove? Like,
oh, his ability to raise the puck in tight like that with the speed that he does it is incredible. Mm-hmm. And I think that entire line of essentially McDavid, Nurse, and Draisaitl, they've been itching for overtime because that's our first overtime of the year.
I was going to say.
They've been hoping for that chance. And they even said it in the post-game interview. It was really funny where they're just like, yeah, we probably stayed on a little bit too long. And then it just kind of worked out. It's like McDavid's like, I had a little bit gas in the tank, so I had the puck. I was like, okay, I'll give it one more go before I go for a change.
Did you hear Harnarayan Singh's call?
His voice
crack?
It's not even a voice crack. It's just a voice lack, I guess, because his voice just completely fell apart.
It just tailed off. It was so amazing that he kept holding on to it.
He tried his best Jack Michaels impression, and it did not work.
That was pretty funny. But I felt good. It wasn't pretty, but those are the games that you need to force out. So, I mean,
if you're against the top team of the league like that, especially like essentially top 3 team in the league, being competitive the entire time is all I'm really looking for.
Yeah.
Like if we were to have lost this game, like let's say 4-3 in regulation, and it was a tight game, I would obviously be disappointed, but I think I'd be able to think of some positive things to spin off of that game. Be like, yes, we were competitive with one of the best teams in the league, but sometimes that's not the case. Mm-hmm. And it leads into the next game where Edmonton loses to New Jersey 5-2.
Yeah, let's just get into it.
So this game, I don't really know much to say about this game outside of our defense was abysmal, and this had to be Skinner's worst game of the season by a mile.
Yeah. I was going to say, you go back to Campbell, but we'll get into that in a second. Next game. wasn't great. I agree.
Well, like let's start with his giveaway that led to the empty net tap-in to blow the tie game essentially at 1-1, and now it's 2-1 New Jersey. That's just abysmal. Like, we're used to seeing it because we're used to Mike Smith, but Skinner needs to calm down. He's been playing the puck way too much. He almost made a similar mistake in the game too, like in the next period, I think, where he went to go play the puck and almost gave it away again while he was 10 feet out of the net.
I was actually in my car. I went out for the first intermission to go grab something, and on my way back, I was listening to the game, and Bob Stauffer just tore him a new asshole on that. He's like, that play was going absolutely nowhere for New Jersey. You don't need to go out and play that puck.
Well, and it comes down to the team just needs to like calm down.
Yeah.
Like Skinner for one, yes. And the defense need to be in a good supportive position. There's been a couple times where there's just no support at all. And it doesn't make any sense. I think it was in this game where Barrie tried to carry the puck out on the 5th goal.
Yeah.
And he has no support. Because the forwards are all at the offensive blue line. And I think it's Kulak and Barrie. Kulak passes it back to Barrie, and Barrie tries to carry it up, being the last man back. And then he just doesn't get back into position. So it's essentially a 2-on-1.
And part of me wonders, just to play devil's advocate, is that them forcing the clock with only 5 minutes left, trying to get something to work?
Well, maybe, but if you don't get the puck out of your own zone,
That's
what are you
true.
really forcing in the first place?
Just Hail Marys, yeah.
One of the forwards needs to be back to kind of support that, especially if Barry's going to try and carry the puck up. I don't know. I don't know actual coaching or actual NHL degree of plays, but that can't be fucking right.
Yeah.
I know you're trying to pick, but have fucking McDavid picking and then have Janmark back helping break the puck out or something like that. You don't have to have all 3 guys up there.
Mm-hmm. I'm with you. A couple things that stand out for me. The Tatar goal was the absolute shit stain on our defensive coverage this year. That was a demonstration to the rest of the NHL how bad the Oilers are defensively this year.
It wasn't the best, that's for sure. That was Puljujarvi had the puck down low in the offensive zone, plays it back to the point. It's a bouncing puck, not a great pass. Nurse bobbles it immediately, fires it right back to the New Jersey forward, and then has to start backing up. And from what I could tell, when I'm not sure who the other New Jersey forward is now that I remember, but he took the shot, and Barrie just turns around and watches the shot as Skinner makes the save in air quotes and flutters it up in the air. Terrible rebound control. We shit on Campbell for that all the time. We got to shit on Skinner when he makes those kind of mistakes too.
Yeah. It's not even the shit in the offensive end that really pissed me off. It's the lack of effort on the back end. You gave up the puck. You need to work twice as hard to work back. And the fact that, I saw the little, deke out where was it Puljujarvi and Barrie that both took the same guy, and they kind of just let Tatar walk in.
Yeah. That was Barry's guy. I think it was Tatar who was the one who took the shot. That's what happened. Tatar took the shot, and Barrie watched him take the shot, tried to kind of get in the way, didn't. Turns around and just watches the puck. He doesn't skate toward where the puck is going. He just stares up and watches it as it falls.
So that leads perfectly into my next point, where I think we can open up the discussion on what's really at hand. I think Leon Draisaitl should not be a centerman on this team anymore.
So are you implying that Nuge should be the center of the second line? Or should he be top line winger? Or
I'm getting fed up with I get that he's one of the most skilled players on the offensive end, but it feels like both of those goals, you look at the Severson goal and the Tatar goal, Puljujarvi's the first man back both times. Now, I get it on a forecheck. This is my own opinion. I don't know what they're taught on the team, so maybe it's not a function of Draisaitl's play. Maybe it's the forecheck, backcheck. But if you're heading up ice, I get F1, F2, F3. You get first man in takes a certain point on the forecheck. But working backwards, when you have a winger taking someone in the center position, you're relying on him to play a center, to play RV's defense, not the most, defensively skilled player on that line by any means. And having him back, I'll say that Puljujarvi's efforts in these past 2 weeks have been pretty good. Like, I'm pretty happy with his effort. He's playing physical. He's
done everything but score.
Exactly, yeah. But you can't have Leon Draisaitl caught up ice every time that you have a goal against.
Well, part of the problem is a lot of the time he gets caught up ice. He's the one carrying the puck in, and he chooses not to dump the puck in and instead try to carry it across the blue line with not enough speed, and he gets forced by the defenseman and gives the puck away. And then he gets caught, like you just said.
So, I just... That's my thoughts. If you stick him on a wing and don't have someone with as much talent as he has... well, he's going to be the guy leading the rush. That's just the way I see it. On a rush play, you need to have someone who's able to get back into that center role in your defensive end should you cough up the puck, which the Oilers tend to do more than any other team in the NHL right now.
Well, that would be one of Nuge or McLeod would have to go there.
Right.
And I think either of them could do that. Maybe even Nuge as the center, Draisaitl takes faceoffs, because you can't deny that Draisaitl's still the best faceoff man on the team. I don't know if that stat supports that, but he takes the most important draws all the time on the team.
Yeah.
So that would be one of the number one things. Or McDavid, for that matter. He could center that too and have Draisaitl on the top line. But I don't disagree with you. I'm trying to think off the top of my head a reason why, but I'm wondering if Draisaitl's injury to his ankle not withstanding any actual still pain he feels in his leg or something like that. That might have been the worst thing for him in his career, because he learned that he doesn't have to try to put up points.
Well, that's kind of where I'm coming from, is your centerman has to be your best physically, like, in tune player that you have on that set of three. And if it's not him, put him on a wing. So my thoughts, like, put him up with McDavid. Let's give a couple runs. Yes, that'll impact the depth, but right now we've got Dylan Holloway playing on the fourth line.
Well, does the depth even matter if the depth's not scoring regardless of Draisaitl playing center?
Exactly.
Because they've been playing Nuge and God, my brain is just not working right now. Puljujarvi, for example, on that line, and they haven't Nuge has been producing a little bit.
Yeah,
Fogel's done okay on that line, but I think they don't need Draisaitl to be making the plays that they are.
Mm-hmm.
But
Honestly, I would throw McLeod up with Nuge and Puljujarvi. And you give the third line to Holloway. You can balance...
So you want third line center Holloway?
Second or third, one of the two, I think. I
don't know about second, but...
Yeah, I didn't...
I'd prefer Holloway on the wing at this point in his career. And I'd like to see centers of, let's say we're doing the Draisaitl on the wing experiment.
Sure. Pull Janmark off that top line.
Well, it's pretty much going to be McDavid, Nuge, and McLeod.
Yeah.
Whether you want to swap Nuge and McLeod around, that's whatever. And then with a healthy Kane, that would give us Draisaitl, Kane, Fogel on the left side, and then Hyman, Puljujarvi, Yamamoto on the right side. Once our team's healthy.
Even with our team the way it is, I'd still keep Nuge on the wing.
So that I'm not confident with Holloway as our third line center.
Yeah.
He hasn't shown the defensive pedigree to play the the center position in a defensive way. But he'll just end up just like Draisaitl.
I disagree.
Based off of your assessment of Draisaitl, I don't think he has the defensive IQ at this point in his career.
The reason I disagree is because I think he's the most physically capable person of those people to play that line.
Based purely off skating ability, I don't disagree with you, but I think he's already proven this season that his timing is off. He panics under pressure, and I don't think he's ready to be playing top 9 center. I'm fine with him playing top line winger, but having the responsibilities that a center needs to have, especially in the D zone if they get hemmed in, I think that is going to be detrimental to the team, because our bottom 6 already bleeds goals against, and I don't think that's going to help the situation at all.
Yeah, I guess we'll agree to disagree on that one.
We'll see if there's a 3-game losing streak here and we're willing to try new things.
Yeah.
But I'm not ready for that experiment yet. I'm fine with moving Draisaitl to the wing, but putting Holloway at center, maybe with the injuries we have right now, I would consider it. But I personally don't think that's going to work yet.
trying to think outside the box, and I keep going to those early games where when Holloway returned from whatever that injury they're calling it, he got those couple games at center, and I thought that's the best he's looked all year.
He's looked pretty good on that fourth line when he's been playing center, when they've been doing 12 forwards.
That's why I figured, elevate him, give him some time with Kostin. I guess who did that put you with on the third?
Ryan?
Yeah, or Fogle, whoever it may be.
Yeah. If we're bumping people all over the place, let's say you're doing Draisaitl, Nuge, and then Fogle would be the third line left winger. And then our right wingers would be Hyman, Puljujarvi, and Kostin. Yeah. I would assume.
I'm desperate to try something new. I don't know if what's working is, well, it's working half the time.
So that leads into the overall problem, I think, with the team, which appears to just be defensive zone coverage in general. Whether that's from the cycle, when we're trying to defend against the cycle, or it's the rush. The amount of times this season I've seen like even a 3-on-3 or a 3-on-2 for us, for example, we're defending with 3 defensemen versus 2 people, and I see guys double commit to the wrong side or the wrong person constantly. Like, it'll be a 2-on-3 for the other team. They have 2 people, we have 3 defensemen back, or a forward and 2 defensemen. And we have 2 players commit to one forward and 1 player commit to the other forward, and then nobody has the trailer who comes into the zone.
Oh my God, yeah.
And the trailer just gets to walk in and take a free shot. Look at the Mark Stone goal, look at the Damon Severson goal. Like, there's so many of these moments happening where maybe this leads into what you were talking about with Draisaitl, where I think each time it was a winger who is back, who maybe they're not set up in terms of they personally believe their responsibilities are when they're out there, where they're like, oh, I'm just going to stay with the guy who has the puck versus playing the man and taking away the trailer or something like that. But overall, I think one of the problems has to be our actual D system in itself. And this brings us back to, what is Dave Manson doing?
Yeah, I think it's a valid question because, I mean, it's one of those things that's existed for forever, but I feel like we're being scored more off the rush this year than any other year. And that's all that I was getting with the Draisaitl thing is I just feel like you'd mentioned, it always feels like there's a winger back. And then when there's a winger back with 2 defensemen, everyone's like, okay, what do we do now?
Yeah, everybody just gets lost in the coverage.
Yeah.
Like, there'll be a pass and everybody will double commit to take away the pass, and then nobody's there taking away the shot.
I mean, it goes back to Calgary, and I think that was one of the things that I noticed in that series, back to last year. But we saw all of those times where, you have a winger down there, and then by the time the centerman comes back into his own defensive end, he goes to commit so the winger can come back to his position. Meanwhile, like, you're in your defensive end. You don't have possession of the puck. So the other team can read that, and it's easy for a guy to step in. Like, how many goals do we give up in the slot?
Well, yeah, and then that leads into our penalty kill.
Yeah.
And how terrible our penalty kill has been. One of my biggest pet peeves on our penalty kill is we have a complete inability to take away the cross-ice pass. It's the cross-ice pass that's sewering us. We try to do it all the time where McDavid passes across the Draisaitl, and I'd say that probably has like a 25% completion rate for that pass actually getting through. Mm-hmm. Meanwhile, on our end, it feels like that goes through 75% of the time.
Wasn't that Moore that scored on one?
Yeah.
In LA? Yeah.
And it just constantly keeps happening where there's nobody taking away the pass. Like, our sticks aren't active enough. Our positioning is not great. I don't really know what to do because I feel like we've tried probably 10 different people on the penalty kill this season, which maybe that's what the problem is that we're rolling through all these different players on the penalty kill when we should just have like a set 4 to maybe 6 guys who play on the penalty kill versus the 10 we have. Yeah. I can't remember if I got into this conversation with you on a previous podcast. Do you remember if we had that conversation?
Yeah, we were talking about this a little bit, but I think you're right. I think there's too many, hands in the pot right now.
Yeah. And it leads back to the defense too. You know how we're shaking up the forwards constantly. We've got Janmark on the top line. We have Kostin on the third line.
Yeah.
The pairings for defense have barely changed at all. The only thing that's changed is Murray and Niemelainen playing with Barry.
It's like there's 2 different psychologies of how the team should work. Like, let's keep refreshing the forwards, get that new kind of, see if there's chemistry somewhere. Meanwhile, if he's on defense, we're here to build a relationship, and we're going to work till we figure this out.
Yeah, well, we have Nurse and Cece together, both of which at times, especially Cece, have really, really struggled this year. Then we have Kulak and Bouchard. Similarly, like, it seems like the odd time they have an off game. To be fair, I think that might be our least mistake pairing outside of a couple of Kulak blown tires this year. And then we have Barry, Murray / Niemelainen.
Right.
And Barry has had some moments this year where he's got caught up pinching a little bit too far or getting lost in the coverage, like we were mentioning on those rush chances. I think his rush defense has seemed pretty abysmal so far this season. But at what point do you start mixing up those pairings? Do you throw Bouchard on the top pairing with Nurse, drop CC down to the fourth pairing with Niemelainen, or third pairing with Niemelainen, and then you have Barry and Kulak? I know they're a little small, but they had a great year in the playoffs. They were really, really good last year and seemed to complement each other really well.
I agree with you. Like, something needs to change. And looking back at the success that they've had so far this year, one of the things that I noticed that was happening a lot is how much, and we kind of shit on him when like he got caught, but you don't see Darnell Nurse taking rushes up ice anymore. Like,
not very often, it seems. And when he does, he generally skates it in and just takes like a wrist shot from the left circle generally. I know he scored on one of those shots this season, but yeah, it seems like maybe the entire decor is just lacking confidence. Like, you can look at Barry when he tried to skate the puck out of the zone in that New Jersey game and like just immediately gave the puck away. He just didn't maybe have the confidence to think that he could get around the guy properly. But I think the whole decor is having a real identity crisis right now. Yeah.
Well, let's finally just wrap up the D thing with one more player. I know you want to talk about Bouchard.
Yes, and his inability to shoot the fucking puck on net.
Oh, man. When I saw that the Oilers were prepping their practice by, bringing out some basically glorified pylons, yeah. Like, that just shows you the status of our defensive shots at the point. Like, tough
I know
goal.
You're supposed to look where your shot's going to go, keep your head up and all that, but Bouchard's got to look down and be like, oh, this puck's not going to make it to the net because there is a guy literally right in front of me.
Yeah.
I think I might have been the LA game. I can't remember which of the 3 games it was, but I was literally screaming because Bouchard took like 4 shots in a row and they were just blocked. I was like, holy fuck, Bouchard, what are you doing, man? Yeah. And then obviously, like, everybody at this point has probably heard the old adage, the shin pad assassin.
Yeah.
And essentially Bouchard's replacing Andre Sekera with that one.
I know he's looking for his first goal, so you got to wonder how much that's eating him up too.
He needs to get that monkey off his back, that's for sure. But I don't know what he's doing. He needs to look where he's shooting, though.
And he's going to do it on, like, just a simple wrister that's going to find its way through, and then it's going to be all fine. But, I mean, he's had this for a couple of years now.
Yeah, well, this season has just been completely egregious.
Yeah.
And it sucks, too, because I feel like this season our forwards, our bigger guys like Fogle, Puljujarvi, and Kostin so far have been really good about getting to the net and creating a screen. But we can never get the puck through.
Yeah, it's hitting the first guy.
Yeah. We should be at least able to get it by the winger who's trying to block the shot up top. Like, the amount of times the other team gets the puck around our wingers, like, I don't know what they're, like, what's in their juice or whatever, or in their fucking BioSteel that they're drinking, but something makes them commit harder for blocking shots than we do, I'll tell you that much.
Yeah. That felt good. It felt good. Just taking a look at the other things, just wrapping up some other notes. Jack Campbell getting hit with a puck on the bench of fucking course.
I was pretty terrified in that moment because first thing I thought of, because it looked like he was holding his eye or at least around his eye, I was like, that's broken orbital bone.
Yeah.
Like, and luckily, or unlucky, depending on how you look at it, it's just a mildly broken nose, I guess.
That's what he said too.
Yeah, because he's going to be backing up tomorrow.
Good.
And Picard is not being called up in any capacity.
Picard can't play anyway because he's hurt.
Oh, is he?
Yeah, that's why I was freaking out.
So we'd have to call up Rodriguez.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Too. Okay.
Do you dress the E-Bug at that point? Like,
yeah. Well, the E-Bug was in there for a bit. Yeah. He was sitting on the bench.
Yeah. It's just one of those little stretches in the season where I just feel like everything is it's on rocky waters. We did a lot of like venting here, but this is just, we're at the quarter pole of the season, and it's been very iffy so far.
Yeah, like we outside of our 1 win streak we had, it's been a very disappointing start to the season so far.
Mm-hmm.
And to be fair, I was reading that we have had, I believe, the 3rd most difficult schedule in the NHL so far this year in terms of quality of competition, versus we now have the 2nd easiest schedule for the rest of the season.
See, I will take this because we had the complete opposite last year.
Yeah.
And you saw when that caught up to us. So, like, and I'm with you, like, I'm glass half full right now. It's just some of these things become obvious. This is when you want to be fixing your problems. Like, this is when you want to figure out what's going on. You don't want to be doing this in March and be like, oh, shit. Like, we're sitting in a playoff spot. What are we going to do first round?
You got to face some adversity.
Yeah.
And hopefully that adversity makes your team better. But the only problem I have with this whole adversity thing is it seems like it's the same problems plaguing the team.
Oh, exactly. So, yeah.
But that leads into, what do you think we can do to fix it? What's the number one thing we could do? Do you make a trade? Do you think a trade will solve the problem? I
think you've got this, like, $5 million with Kane on LTIR. You got to look at the holes that are being filled. I don't know what, like, I'm happy with Kostin. Janmark has been like, I really don't like him on the top line.
Janmark had a couple good games, but so far on the top line, he hasn't been that impressive.
Yeah.
I prefer somebody who's more of a forechecker than a puck carrier.
Yeah.
And that's just my personal opinion, I guess.
I don't want to make a trade and give up assets for something where you're trying to plug a hole for the sake of plugging a hole.
Well, and I'm going to just voice my opinion. And personally, I don't think a trade is going to help this team currently, especially on the forwards. Yeah. Like, I've heard some rumors of the Oilers being interested in Josh Anderson.
No, thank you.
But I have literally negative interest in that unless somebody else is going the other way, probably Puljujarvi, so that we have room in our top 9 for that, because currently I don't think with a healthy team we have room in our top 9 for Josh Anderson. But our number one concern is defense.
Yeah.
So we either need a righty who can play with Nurse, or we need a lefty who can bump Kulak down and Murray and Niemelainen into the press box.
So there'd be a lot of cap fan dangling to make this work, but Erik Karlsson.
I've been thinking about Erik Karlsson a lot, and I'm glad you brought it up.
Sweet.
Because we don't even have notes on that. But me and my roommate were speculating on what it would take to get Erik Karlsson and what I would be okay with. And the only way I could see it happening is minimum it would need to be 50% retained, whether that's through a third team or something.
Yep.
But he needs to be coming in at $6 million max.
Yep.
Because otherwise I just don't think that's possible. And I think in a perfect world, you could get him down to even like $4 million through a double retention trade. But there's going to be some significant pieces you're going to have to give up.
You're talking like a Broberg, a first.
What I'm thinking for my trade speculation is a first, Broberg, Puljujarvi, Barrie.
Interesting.
I know it's a lot.
But you get the cap savings both. Well, Puljujarvi and Barrie too.
You essentially get $7 million on the cap, so we could take him for up to $7 million or so, right. Not including the $2.5 million that we apparently have in current cap space thanks to LTIR.
So giving up Barrie, what does that leave you for a hole with on D?
Well, that moves Karlsson to the top pairing with Nurse, then Bouchard, and moves CC down to the third pair.
That's not bad. That's a hell of a lot better than it's sitting right now.
Because I think it's pretty redundant to have. Especially all three of them, of Bouchard, Barrie, and Karlsson. And maybe they want Bouchard. I don't know if I'm willing to do that. Barrie is definitely more, especially if we're giving up Broberg and we're giving up a first, I don't want to also give up Bouchard. So Barrie would have to be the defenseman to go.
Yeah.
Because otherwise we have way too much money on that right side.
Well, and the other thing that you can take into consideration too is by giving up those pieces, that frees you up basically to be in the same cap situation that you're at before. By the sounds of it, $1 million plus to work with, and you've now got a couple holes you can fill. Or, like I mentioned before, when people get healthy, you have the holes that you can fill, and you can keep, Yamamoto, Kane, everybody that's in there right now on the roster. Because right now, like, Yamamoto, Kane come back, we're gonna have to start sending guys down.
Yeah,
and then you'll just have to make that decision. I like that. I really do, actually.
I think that's the best you can get. Like, I think in a perfect world, we don't have to give up Broberg, and you could give up somebody else. But with Samorukov being gone, and Niemelainen, I will say, struggling to get his foot in the door to be on that third pairing, I think Broberg's the only defenseman of real value we would have to trade right now.
Yeah.
And I don't want to give up on a guy, but Karlsson's been playing great. My only concern with Karlsson is that he struggled in San Jose quite a bit when Burns was there. To be fair, they were both the same side. They were both righties, so they were kind of sharing duties. But Karlsson is more of a clear-cut number one, and he does best when he is the go-to guy.
And when he's healthy.
Because, and to be fair, he's healthier than I think he's been since his injury.
And he's looking like the perennial all-star he's always been. I think that's what's been nagging him a big part. Like, I do like the piece about him and Burns playing together. Like, that definitely will impact a guy. But yeah, I think now that he's healthy, he's Erik Karlsson. Like, so I'd sign that deal tomorrow.
Yeah, the only thing that would need to happen is that Nurse would have to take a step back offensively and slip more into the role of being a shutdown defenseman.
But don't you think that would be beneficial for him?
I personally think that would be beneficial for him. Yes, he has great skating, but I'd like him to use that great skating more on the defensive end. Mm-hmm. Whether that's just breaking the puck out with a nice pass or back checking incredibly hard, because there's times where he just fucking flies on the back check. There was, I think, a couple times this year where there was a breakaway and he somehow caught up to the guy on the breakaway and managed to knock the puck away, or at least mess with him enough to make it so they couldn't get a good scoring opportunity.
Yeah.
I agree. I think Karlsson would be the number one target. Outside of that, I haven't looked too much into it. And we were talking about potentially a left defenseman. That would be maybe Chychrun, who's finally back from injury. But I would want more of a sample size to look at Chychrun. And plus, you're talking injury prone. Chychrun's a fucking glass house.
Well, the other reason that I'd put Karlsson over him right now is I think there's a leadership role to be filled on that back end.
That's very true. I think Karlsson would do fantastic in a leadership capacity with Edmonton, kind of similar to what Duncan Keith brought to this team last year.
Yeah, I think you need a Chris Pronger-esque trade right now in order for you to make a trade right now worthwhile.
Yeah, well, I did see somebody post on Reddit that we need another Chris Pronger, and I was like, of course we need another perennial all-star, future Hall of Famer, like a fantastic stay-at-home two-way defenseman. Yeah, why not?
But yeah, no, like if we're gonna use modern-day comparables, I would go EK or equivalent, like
for what we need on this team.
Yes.
And like I think Karlsson would give us the one thing we've been lacking since Pronger, which is a true, clear-cut number one defenseman. Yeah. And him and Nurse, assuming Karlsson's healthy and has the capacity to do so, they could easily play 30 minutes a night.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, I agree. But we'll see how things go here. Tomorrow night, the Oilers will jump into Long Island. They always get pissed off when you fuck it up. I forget which one it is. You're on Long Island, not in Long Island.
I would think so.
Yeah. Okay.
It's an island in itself, but
they're playing the Islanders.
That's at 5:30.
Yeah.
And then they play Saturday against the Rangers at 11 a.m. And like I said before, I'm looking forward to a nice early game. Feels like I'm watching like an F1 race when the game's that early, and I like to get it out of the way, so I'm not thinking about it all day long.
I'd prefer 11 a.m. game before a 2 o'clock in the afternoon game for sure.
Yeah. But because then you can get, like 2 o'clock kind of falls in the middle of the day, kind of ruins it. Like you have to commit to the game during the day, versus a game at 11, you get it over with, for lack of a better word. The only problem is if you're one of those drinkers out there, you might be a little morning drunk.
Very true. Well, taking a look at our next podcast, they play on Monday, so it either makes sense for us to record again on Tuesday or potentially on Sunday. So look out for the podcast either Monday morning or Tuesday evening. But it'll be there. Don't worry, it'll be there. That being said, we'll see you next week.